Hello and welcome to this month's episode of Beneath the Gavel. I'm Andy Gavrin, Vice President of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Township's esteemed Director of Building and Planning and all-around great guy, Chris Leswing. Thanks for joining me, Chris.
Thanks, Andy. Glad to be here.
It's wonderful to have you.
I can call you Andy.
Yes, please. For this episode and this episode only.
Understood.
So let's start just getting to know you. You're the Director of Building and Planning. What does that mean?
Well, it's a great job. I have to tell you that. It's a great job that has a lot of responsibilities. The township has about 25 different people that work for the building and planning department. In that, we manage permits if you're going to fix your house up, add a shed, add a roof, redo your kitchen. But we also do long-range planning and day-to-day planning and land development, which I think a lot of people are familiar with on the planning end of it. We also run some Cdbg, economic development, and some other aspects of the township as well.
Okay, what is Cdbg for those who don't know?
That is Community Development Block Grant. There is federal money that is distributed to large communities for housing and community aid, and the township is large enough that we receive approximately $1 million a year, but we have to administer that. So we have that's through our department as well.
Right, and the work you guys do, great work in helping purchase housing for those who can't, and fixing it up, and really great projects.
And we do a lot. It's incremental. But it's made, over 20 years or so since I've been here, it's been a lot of improvements incrementally to really improve the quality of life for people in areas that are distressed within the township.
That's wonderful. Great.
And that's Emily Crane. She's great. And in my role is I'm somewhat the manager of all of this. We have such a fabulous team in building and planning. You see them every month with land development, whether it's Jillian or whether it's Greg Pritchard with historic preservation. But the building side of things, a lot of people come in to get permits. They are incredibly professional, incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
We're very service oriented.
That's great, and we've seen that. I've gotten that feedback, and I've never had anything but great feedback from people coming in. So that's wonderful. Right. And I guess a question that I'd want to ask is, so if somebody's doing some work on their house, shouldn't they just do it? Why should they come in and get a permit?
They should definitely not just do it. They should first look to make sure to see if they need a permit. The reason you have permits is to make sure things are healthy and safe. The permits are designed to make sure, they're really intended to make sure that construction is safe and something doesn't fall down. While we all think we know how to do things, there's always that, the tendency of somebody who might not quite admit that they don't know how to do something, whether you're framing your house or putting on a new roof. It's best to check with us to make sure if you need a permit and then to go through the process. The township, we move things along as fast as we can. We also give you advice. Sometimes people come in and they want to do something, and there are limits on what you can do. We'll sometimes help you work through it. And so that's what we're here to do. And it's a small town, and we're here to help you as part of your small town government.
That's great. And if somebody doesn't know, they're like, I'm not a lawyer, I can't read through ordinance after ordinance, can they just call up and
They can call up, and sometimes it just helps to come on down to the township. We have a counter. It's the counter. It's a local counter at the town hall, really, and you come in, and we have two wonderful people at the counter, Claire and Angie, and if they can't answer your question, there's other people in the back. They bring it out. The building inspectors will come out. They'll sit with you, and if we need to set up more time, we'll set up more time, but we'll help you to work through that, the zoning officer and that whole team.
That's great. And so on the flip side of things, sometimes people see things they don't like, right? See some neighbors cutting down 30 trees in their front yard, somebody's doing, God knows what. What should they do in that circumstance?
Well, a lot of times we get forwarded calls. There's an opportunity. The township has a hotline that you can call.
Okay.
Hopefully they can put the scroll number down underneath this when
I'm sure they are.
But there's a number. Also, you can email the building and planning department. People also email the ward commissioner, and those comments are forwarded off to us, and we try to address them just as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and again, I've seen that in practice, and you guys always do a great job.
Right. And sometimes it's just a question. I mean, somebody called today to say, is my neighbor allowed to do work on their house? And we checked, and there were permits being pulled.
Yeah.
But the neighbor wasn't obligated to tell their neighbor that they were doing it. So.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And so before we get into a little more township stuff, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, something that's been weighing heavily on me, you guys may not know at home, we actually tape these in advance. So right now we're a little bit ahead of the baseball season. Yes. I know, Chris, you and I are both huge baseball fans and huge Phillies fans. The lockout is now over. What do you think about the Phillies this year?
Well, as of today, the Phillies just got a new left fielder.
Yes,
so
they did.
I'm very excited about that. That was something they needed, probably a leadoff hitter as well. That was just a key hole in that, and having that third big bat in the lineup will go a long way.
Yeah.
I think the pitching's coming around. I'd feel a lot better if the minor leagues were a little bit more solid, but you always hope, and it's spring, is eternal for baseball.
Yes, it is.
So we're hoping that some new players step up, but I feel a lot better now with a solid left fielder in the lineup.
And now that 93% of baseball makes the playoffs, that always helps.
I like their chances.
Yeah. And what about the rule changes? And we'll get back to building and planning in a few minutes, but what do you think of a couple of the rule changes that were implemented?
I grew up in the Philadelphia area. I'm a traditionalist. I'm not a fan of the DH. I really would like to not have the DH coming next year. I also don't like the shift.
I hate the shift.
And I'm glad they're getting rid of the shift, but I'm not happy they're putting the DH in the National League.
Yeah, I struggle with the DH like you. I grew up in a National League city. I won't talk about which one because I don't want to get run out of town here. I have become a Phillies fan, but I haven't liked the DH. But with the two leagues becoming essentially one league, you don't have two leagues anymore. They had to equalize it. Yeah. So reluctantly, I'm okay with it.
I would actually think that if you had a DH, you should expand the rosters. I think you could go to 27, 28 players, and I think that would be better, especially with where we are today.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting, and we'll see. I don't love the expanded playoffs. I think you have a very long season to get into that tournament, but
yeah, I mean, I like the old school. It was just the winner of each league plays in the World Series. I'd be happy going back to that.
Yeah. I know my kids are watching this for building and planning advice and to learn what's going on, not for baseball talk. Maybe we'll have our own show talking baseball.
I'm very much looking forward to that.
That would be a good one. But I guess we should jump back to building and planning. One thing, in addition to knowing you're a baseball fan, one thing I've heard rumors of that you like to ride a bike every once in a while.
It's true. I do. My bike's right out front. I like to ride to work. I live close enough that I can ride to work, which is a real luxury for anybody, just being able to commute to work. The area is great for riding a bike. We live in a small town. I can talk about how I live in Ardmore, and I routinely ride over to Balkinwood to the Kinwood Trail every day. It's a great opportunity. It's very safe. It's very convenient, and you run into a lot of your neighbors and friends.
Yeah. But there are some places where it's tough to ride throughout the township.
There are.
So are we doing anything about that?
That's a commitment from the Building and Planning Department. We're working on something called the Mainline Greenway.
Okay.
The Mainline Greenway is a low-stress bike route that is really designed for anybody, not your professional person in spandex who's your regular bike riders, to ride on residential streets that have lower traffic, the streets that most people live on. There's actually good connectivity in the township between those. The key part is getting across intersections. Those are some things where we need to work with the Public Works Department on some improvements. But for the most part, we're getting there. And we've had some really good success. There'll be a lot of group rides this year. I'm sure we can send it out in your newsletter and put it up on the township website to get more people involved to see it. Because once you find that route, you can discover how easy it is to get around the township.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And I'll admit, so you took me on a ride from Villanova down to the Kinwood Trail, which was amazing.
Which was impressive because you did it on a single speed bike.
And I barely survived, but I did survive. Good attempt to not make me survive, but I did. I tried to recreate it. The problem was I got completely lost. So when you do the Mainline Greenway, are there going to be directional signs, or am I going to have to constantly stop and look at my GPS on my phone?
There will be signs.
Okay.
And that's what we're working on. First, we've done a lot of what we call ground source riding to find out the best route. You were part of the test group. Do you feel comfortable? And we've put that together. I've been working with the Narberth Bike Club and other bike advocates to do this, and we've come up with what we think is a very workable route.
Great.
And now that we have the route, we're working with Public Works to address a couple points that we would like to make more comfortable for riders. And with that, then in the next year or so, we're going to try to get some signage up.
That's wonderful.
Now that we have the route laid out.
Okay. If anyone has any feedback on the Mainline Greenway or other thoughts on it, what should they do?
Mainlinegreenway.bike.
Ooh,
it's the only .bike website that I know of. It's a great website. It's monitored by the township staff. It'll show you the route. It'll show you upcoming rides, and it also gives you an opportunity for feedback.
That's great to know.
Or you can just call me.
Okay. So in addition to biking, you obviously can drive through the township. You could also walk through the township in most places. What are we doing? Something I hear a lot about is sidewalks.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on improving pedestrian access?
Well, that's one of the key things. Since I've been here with the township, I've my orientation to planning is really about the public realm. It's about walking in open space. So I'm always trying to include that in everything that we do. And in the 20 years that I've been here, you've seen a fundamental shift in the interest of sidewalks.
Yeah.
The 20 years when I came in, people were very happy not to include a sidewalk with the new residential subdivision, which I could never understand. It's so hard to get this back. But as a community, we did this for many years. Well, now the township has been working with different commissioner committees to really put together what we think is a plan to infill sidewalks. It's going to be a major infrastructure undertaking. It's expensive. Putting these things in later on the public dime is going to be more expensive than originally having the developer do it. But it's necessary. It's really going to be for the board to figure out how we pay for it and fund it over years. But what we've come up with is it's a complement to the Mainline Greenway, where the Mainline Greenway uses low stress routes and then spends your infrastructure on the pinch points where you don't feel comfortable and safe. We're doing the same thing that most streets in the township either have sidewalks or are comfortable to walk on. The ones where you're not comfortable, we'll make the investments, and that's the plan that we have to go forward. So we'll bring that forward later this year.
Okay.
For consideration for funding and investment over several years.
That's great. So why are they? Can't you just lay down some concrete and there you have a sidewalk?
Once again, it's the safety part of the building and planning. We want to be able to make sure it lasts and it meets the requirements of what you need to do. It does require a permit.
And I know also for, the trees are sometimes in the way and other structures, and it's not as easy as you'd otherwise think.
Stormwater management, a lot of things. And also, before you dig, call.
Yes.
It's always a very important thing.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of wires, a lot of pipes out there, and we want to be careful.
No doubt. Well, Chris,
but that's a good conversation for Paul McElhaney to have.
No doubt. He's our Director of Public Works. Well, thanks so much, Chris. Unfortunately, time flies when you're having fun. I wish we didn't have to pause, but the LMTV guys get mad at me if we don't wait for those commercials and our sponsors that are paying the big bucks. But don't worry, we'll be right back with more conversation with Chris Leswing after these messages. Welcome back to Beside the Gavel. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm still Vice President of the Board, Andy Gavrin, and he's still Lower Merion Director of Building and Planning, Chris Leswing. Chris, we talked a little bit about baseball, a little bit about Building and Planning Department in general. Let's get into some more substantive topics here.
Sure.
We've spent some time recently on the board on SALDO. It's an acronym. Not many people know what it means. If you could enlighten us a little bit, would be great.
The SALDO is short for the Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance. Okay. It's the complementary ordinance to the zoning code. So the township spent, in 2020, all of us, the entire township, because we brought everybody involved in the process, adopted a new zoning code, which is a big undertaking for the community. But the zoning code says who, what, where, and when, what you can build. So how big can your house be and where can a house go? Right? That's what it says. It has a lot of those rules. But also, there's an important part of it is now that we're a developed community is what does the outside of it look like? How does it relate to the other landscape? Where are the trees on the site? Where do the sidewalks go? Are there bike racks for a new apartment building or an institution? All of those qualitative aspects are really in the subdivision ordinance. And it was a subdivision ordinance back when the township was subdividing all the time, right? The township's pretty much all subdivided. All those residential properties, there's only a handful that are left. That's not going to happen. But it's really land development. And so when a new project comes in, either through development or redevelopment, we'll see old buildings that they weren't designed to last forever. I mean, a lot of our commercial buildings that were built after 1950, they have a shelf life. They will need to be torn down and rebuilt. The key with the subdivision ordinance is to make sure that they're the highest quality coming forward so you can walk to them. They look better. You have trees in parking lots, those kind of things. And we're really updating it to be more sustainable and to give the look that we really want to the community. And it's been a great process. It's much like we do everything in building and planning. We involve the public. We're not scared to go out to the public. We involve the public in many meetings. We involved all the advisory bodies together, the big advisory bodies, and that was incredibly helpful. We had over 800 comments that helped to shape the document and to make it better. And some of it, we didn't accept all the comments, but they formulated ideas that we could do to work to improve things. And really, the new subdivision code really has a lot to do with sustainability and really reflects where we are as a community and where we want to go. So
if I'm a resident and I want to plant a tree in my backyard, am I looking at SALDO, am I looking at zoning, or am I just planting a tree in my backyard? You're planting a tree in your backyard. Okay. That doesn't require a permit, but you should still look before you dig. Okay.
That's always careful. The subdivision code really is triggered in for new development when you have more than 3 houses.
Okay.
Or if it's something that affects commercial or institutional development.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's where it triggers. So it's those kind of things, which really, as we go forward in the township, with the township being built out, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
But what does get built is very important.
Sure.
So that's why it matters, to make sure that the new development is of the highest quality that we have.
So what are some of the key changes in the Saldo? A couple of highlights from it.
Well, one boring part of the Saldo is plan processing. We made it easier and more streamlined when you submit an application, so the community has the right amount of information to process something.
Okay.
We have added some sustainability. We've added some things to reduce everybody's bugaboo about new development traffic.
Yeah.
We have something called transportation demand management, which requires basically any of the new development. We've triggered the requirements to where that development's going to occur, to work with the township on a plan to reduce single occupancy vehicles attending it, so during rush hour.
Okay.
So with that, they need to tell us how many employees they're going to have, are they taking public transportation, and why aren't they? And then we continue to work with them to reduce that need for single occupancy vehicles coming forward.
Gotcha.
Which is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
We required more trees with plantings, bigger, broader verges, better, wider sidewalks. Those kind of things are in the Saldo. Everything's kind of now linked to more sustainability and permanence, as opposed to previous land development code, which was divide up the land, get something built, and it would all kind of work together. Well, now we're trying to not focus on a single development, but making sure how everything connects together.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and I think it's necessary for our township, and it's somewhere necessary for every township and every municipality in the state and the country to get more sustainable, to have more of those, and I think you call them smart streets, where it's, the transportation from cars, bikes, and walking pedestrians all working together, and really having a streetscape where people really enjoy walking places, and it's not scary to walk down the street because you have a wall on one side and the street on the other side of you.
Exactly. It's a town. We really are trying to make this a town. It all comes back to our 2016 comprehensive plan, which is once again a very extensive public outreach, and people want to live in a town. They don't want to just live in an auto-oriented suburb. They want something that has a lot more features to it. And it's hard. We're talking about sidewalks, trees. Those are things you think about in a town. And making sure we get those in the right place.
Man, and I didn't even pay you to do this, but you did an amazing transition to the next question, which is the Ardmore master plan. So the center of our township is obviously Ardmore. It's where our township building is. It's right in the middle of our township. It's been an exciting place to be in the last few years, with a lot of new restaurants. Suburban Square has done a ton of work in downtown.
Ardmore or Ardmore Music Hall.
Ardmore Music Hall has renovated and done some wonderful things. We have the bike race. There's so much going on in Ardmore. Ardmore Progressives doing so much. Yet we're still, on top of all that, we're doing an Ardmore master plan.
We are.
Why are we doing that?
The Ardmore master plan is going to do a couple things. Ardmore was originally really brought about a planning initiative about 20 years ago. Ardmore had been facing a lot of challenges. By being a small town, it was competing with malls. So a lot of the small mom and pop stores couldn't really compete with malls because people were going to a bigger store with more options to go for. So we were starting to see vacancies in Ardmore. There was also, with the vacancies, a lot of the property owners weren't properly investing, so they weren't caring for it. Previous efforts about 20 years ago brought about historic guidelines. So now as somebody comes in and they invest, they need to make sure that the windows aren't covered up, the facades are properly treated. We're getting the right sort of use at making sure that people can live above stores, that there's been all of these small changes. There were some really significant transportation changes that were put in back then. The intersection of Ardmore Avenue and Lancaster Avenue was realigned. It was a dog leg previously. It was very difficult to navigate. Well, that was fixed up. Well, those big changes were done, and there was some zoning. Some of the zoning was controversial. It brought in some new residential, but that residential is bringing new feet on the street.
Yeah.
And one evidence to that is, let's say I live in Ardmore, and I was going to a concert over a place called The Living Room on a Saturday night, and I stopped and got an ice cream cone on a Saturday night in March, and there was a line out the door.
Wow.
Now, if we didn't have people just living there supporting it, that wasn't just all people driving or walking up from the neighborhood. Those number of people make those kind of things happen. And that was, being able to get good ice cream on a Saturday night is a nice treat.
Yeah.
But those things have happened. Now what we want to do is take it to the next step. We still need a big open space. We need a signature open space in Ardmore. That's one of the big outcomes. There's still some transportation improvements. It's hard to cross the street. There's a lot of challenges to that.
Yeah.
What does our streetscape look like? It's an old, tired streetscape. A lot of those improvements were put in 20, 25 years ago. It could be reimagined to be more sustainable, more attractive going forward. And there's also some still outstanding zoning issues to look at. When the new zoning was done, there was concern about how high should buildings be, should we incorporate more affordable housing, sustainability, some of those other issues, more public space. The consultant that we've retained is going to be addressing those, and it's going to be a really great opportunity for public engagement.
Yeah, no doubt.
The consultant we've hired is very serious about that, and the township staff will be supplementing that as well. And we've already reached out to civic associations, the Ardmore Initiative, many of the businesses. Everybody's happy to do this for the next year, so we're really hoping to do that, and we'll be advertising a lot of those opportunities to participate, because we want to hear from everybody.
Yeah,
this isn't just the people that live in Ardmore, work in Ardmore. This is the town center. We want everybody in the community to participate.
I think that's great. And I think, when I think of Ardmore, I think there's these great pockets, right? You have Suburban Square, you have the historic downtown Ardmore, you have the Piazza development, which is going to be a massive development on that side with all kinds of amenities as well, and the shops near there.
A supermarket.
Yeah. So we have these pockets. Will the master plan help connect these and put these
together?
Exactly.
That's one of the real goals of this master plan, is to create individual pockets and turn it into a town. Once again, so you're walking it through. One of the things is, most people know through driving. We don't want people to drive at one end and then drive to the other to go somewhere. We want somebody to come in, you drive once, or more ideally, you bike to Ardmore, right? If you live in the township, it's not that far. Even you're out in Villanova, it's not that far to bike, and especially with new electric bikes that are coming on. The cost of them is really dropping, and they're so convenient. But to be able to get into Ardmore and then to be able to walk through it, because the joy of going in between spaces and running into your neighbors or running into somebody else who you don't know or seeing something you're unfamiliar with, and building those sort of streetscapes, back alleys, great streetscape along Lancaster is really going to be one of those exciting pieces.
So no moving walkway?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's probably going to be something that comes out in the next couple of years.
That's phase two?
That's phase
two. So talking about Ardmore, that's one of our commercial centers in our town, right? We have Bala Kinwood and City Line Avenue, and we have Bryn Mawr. Why are we focused on Ardmore, and are we going to focus on these other areas as well?
Great question. So there's always a push in the community of how much we can do at one time. And it's also, some areas need specialized attention, some can be general. The zoning code was a township-wide initiative. And then we go back and we did a comprehensive plan, which was township-wide. The comprehensive plan took these specific area plans and kind of incorporated them together, kind of consolidated them. What we're doing now that we have a comprehensive plan is then doing special master plans. We'll do one for Ardmore, and then we kind of have a plan to do some of the other commercial areas, cycle through those in the coming years.
Okay. That's great.
Merion Kinwood can certainly use that, the area up in there. Maybe that's a multi-municipal plan with Narberth. There's a lot of potential there to really improve that streetscape.
That's great.
And that's one that we have our eye on.
So if you look at our township 25 or 30 years out from now, when you're, instead of biking, you're in your wheelchair, willing to the
my
next
hoverjet.
place.
I was promised a jetpack. I was promised a jetpack.
Right. That's as long as you promise to retire. That's your retirement gift. What do you see? What do you see for Lower Merion in 25 years from now?
I see it being a great town. I think it's a place that our commercial areas have such potential to serve our local residents. That if you live in your house, you want to go meet your friends, your kids want to go out and get French fries, after school and sit in the diner and talk and go to get a soda. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to have our downtown areas to have parks and trees and something that really has a lot of great pride to it. I mean, our residential neighborhoods are excellent. They will remain excellent. But we want to make sure that those commercial areas that connect us, that our public ways are really exceptional.
That's great. Yeah, if I can get my kids out of the house and get them to hang out in Ardmore with their friends and be away from me for a little bit, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for a couple minutes.
Yeah. Well, we're looking for a diner. I think we know we've made it when we can get a diner down.
Chris, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but we're out of time. Thank you for your time. It's been a lot of fun and incredibly informative. For Chris Leswing, our amazing producers, Josh Mackley and Mark Murray, I'm Andy Gavrin saying thank you for joining us at Beside the Gavel.